The room was cold and quiet, filled with a soft blue light. Metal walls surrounded the table where she lay. She blinked slowly, her head heavy, her vision blurred. Strange machines beeped near her ears, and tubes ran from her arms. Her body felt numb, like it didn't belong to her anymore. She tried to sit up, but pain shot through her spine. Her legs refused to move. They felt strange, too heavy, too stiff. Panic began to rise in her chest. She looked down slowly, and what she saw made her breath stop. Her legs were gone, replaced with cold silver metal. The skin was gone, her knees replaced with joints that clicked slightly when she tried to move. Thin wires glowed faintly beneath metal panels. She gasped, her hands shaking as they touched her cold limbs. Footsteps echoed nearby, calm and slow. A human man walked into the room. Wearing a faded blue uniform, he looked tired. His eyes heavy with dark circles. He carried a tray of tools. But his face wasn't cruel, just focused. "You're awake," he said gently. Placing the tray on a table, she opened her mouth. Her voice barely a whisper. "What? What did you do to me?" And the man sighed and pulled up a small chair beside her. "I saved your life," he said, looking directly at her. "You were dying, your ship was in ruins, your body broken." She shook her head slowly, tears welling up in her eyes. "This isn't saving. This is turning me into a machine. I had no choice," he said. "Your legs were crushed beyond repair, your spine shattered, your pulse fading. You could have let me go," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I didn't ask for this." He didn't answer right away. He stared at the floor, then stood up again. "I couldn't just watch you die," he said quietly. "I've lost too many already." She clenched her fists. The sound of metal creaking filled the air. Her legs twitched, responding without full control. "I can't even walk right," she said angrily. "Why did you do this to me?" The man walked to a console and tapped a few buttons. A screen lit up showing medical scans. "Bone fractures, bleeding, internal damage. I used everything I had left," he said. "I gave you cybernetics to replace what was gone. But I never touched your mind." She didn't know whether to scream or cry. Her memories were blurry. She remembered flying through a red zone. Something hit her ship, fire, darkness. Then this table, this pain, this body that didn't feel like hers. "You don't understand what you've done," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "My people, they don't accept hybrids. They will call me corrupted." The man turned slowly, surprise on his face. "I didn't know," he said. "I just thought saving you was the right thing." She looked away, staring at the ceiling lights above. Her tears slid down the sides of her face without sound. "What now?" she asked. "Do I live like this forever?" You'll walk again," he said softly. "Stronger than before, faster, better." She turned her face toward him sharply. "But not myself," she snapped. "Not the person I was." He didn't argue. Instead, he picked up a small device and placed it gently in her hand. "Training unit," he said. "It will help you control your new legs." "Small steps first?" She didn't thank him. She couldn't. Her heart was full of anger, confusion, fear, and deep loss. The silence between them was heavy. He walked out of the room, leaving her alone with the machines. She stared at her metal toes, curled slightly as if unsure they were even hers. She lifted her legs a little, but they twitched and slammed back down. She screamed, a sharp cry that echoed in the empty room. Her voice bounced off cold metal walls and vanished into nothing. "I'm not a machine," she whispered. "I'm not a machine." But deep inside, a tiny light blinked near her spine, unknown to her. Something had been added, something beyond repair. Something hidden. The human had saved her. But he hadn't told her everything, and she was starting to feel it. The next morning, she opened her eyes to find a cane beside her bed. It was sleek and black, with a glowing blue grip. Her metal legs twitched under the blanket. Still unfamiliar, still heavy. Her hands trembled as she pushed the blanket aside. The door opened and the human entered, carrying a plate of food. "I made you something light," he said quietly, placing it on a small table. She didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed on the cane. "The symbol of everything she had lost. I want to try," she said without emotion. He paused, then gave a small nod. "All right," he replied. But slowly, he helped her sit up, his hand gentle but firm. Her feet, no. Her legs hit the ground with a metallic thud. She hated the sound already. She grabbed the cane and tried to stand, but her knees buckled, and she collapsed into his arms. "Don't touch me," she growled, pushing him away. He stepped back. Giving her space, she tried again. Gritting her teeth, the legs responded slowly. One joint at a time, each movement felt wrong, like her body didn't listen to her anymore. She took one step, then another. The sound of metal hitting metal echoed with each footfall. She dragged herself toward the mirror in the corner. When she saw her reflection, she froze. The alien woman who once had proud warrior legs and glowing skin was gone. Now she stood with artificial limbs, robotic knees and glowing wires up her thighs. A stranger stared back at her. Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to cry. She turned to him slowly. "I used to dance," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I used to run faster than any male in my clan." He looked away. Ashamed. "You can still move," he said. "You can be stronger than before." "But I'm not me anymore," she replied. "I didn't survive, you replaced me." The cane slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor. Her legs locked and she fell to her knees again. But this time she didn't scream. She just stared ahead, blank, empty, broken inside. He bent down beside her. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said softly. "You were dying. And I couldn't let it happen. Not again, again." That phrase, she looked at him closely. "Again?" She asked what happened before. He didn't speak, just helped her to the bed. After he left, she sat in silence. Then her eyes turned to the small terminal screen across the room. She forced herself up, limping without the cane, her legs dragging. She reached the console and tapped the display. The screen lit up with access logs, medical files, dates, reports, scanned images. Then she found something. A folder marked Trial 7X, success rate 58%. She clicked it and her heart stopped. Inside were files of others, alien names, human names, all listed as subjects, some marked as terminated, others as incomplete. One file was still active, and it was hers. Her name was now a code, 7X. Notes showed her injuries, her measurements, upgrade details, emotional response scores. "Patient exhibits strong emotional resistance," one line read. "Risk of rejection still present," said another. Her breath became heavy. This wasn't just saving a life. This was a test, an experiment. She slammed the screen off, her fingers shaking. Later, when he returned, he brought more tools. He looked tired but hopeful. "I installed new motion control this morning," he said. "You'll walk better now." She didn't respond. He knelt to adjust something near her knee joint. As he worked, she stared down at him, her voice cold. "What am I to you?" He looked up, confused. "A person," he said. "A survivor." "No," she said bitterly. "I'm Subject 7X." He froze. The silence hung thick in the room. She pushed him back with her metal foot and stood up. Her body shook, but she didn't fall. "You lied," she hissed. "You made me think I was lucky to live. But I was just another number in your project." He stood up slowly, hands raised. "I didn't mean to hide it," he said. "I just didn't know how to explain it. It wasn't supposed to go like this." She looked away, her voice shaking. "You said you saved me. But what if I'd rather have died as myself?" She walked to the far wall slowly. Her steps still uneven, but she didn't fall. She didn't ask for help. And when she looked back at him, her eyes were different. Stronger, colder, and full of suspicion. This was not over, not even close. The silence in the room felt heavier than metal. She sat alone, staring at her metal feet as they moved without her full control. Every time she flexed her toes, the sound reminded her she wasn't whole anymore. She wasn't just healing, she had been changed. The human hadn't spoken to her in hours. He stayed on the other side of the glass wall. Working on machines, sometimes he looked at her, like he wanted to explain, but every time he stayed quiet. She didn't trust him anymore. Not after reading those files. Not after seeing her name turned into a cold number. Subject 7X. She wanted answers, real answers, not soft words or gentle lies. That night, when the lights dimmed and the hallway grew quiet, she limped back to the terminal. This time, she went deeper. She bypassed the warnings and opened the encrypted files. It took time, her fingers were still shaky, her limbs stiff, but she was patient. She found a hidden directory marked Rejected. Inside there were more names, dozens, maybe hundreds. Some had alien symbols. Others were human. All had photos, faces full of pain, fear, confusion. Next to each photo was a result. Failed connection, cognitive breakdown, subject lost control. One face looked familiar. A young alien girl with soft white skin and bright purple eyes. The note said she had survived the operation. But her mind couldn't handle the neural implants. She tore out her own eyes 3 days later, and the human had marked her file. No further tests on her species. The alien woman gasped. Her hand covering her mouth, she felt sick, her chest tight. This wasn't healing, this was a lab of horrors. She had walked into something darker than she imagined. Suddenly a voice behind her spoke low and tired. "You weren't supposed to see that." She turned sharply, nearly falling. The human stood there holding a small device in one hand. He looked more human now, less like a scientist, more like a man carrying too much pain. "You lied to me," she whispered. "I know," he said quietly. "But I had my reasons." She stared at him, her fists clenched. "You experimented on children?" "I tried to save them," he replied, stepping closer. "They were all dying just like you." "But you didn't ask," she snapped. "You decided for them. You played God," he didn't argue. Instead, he walked to the console and sat down. "I started this project after my daughter died," he said. "She was 12. She had a disease no one could cure," he continued. "I created tech to save her. But I was too late. So I tried to save others with the same tech." He looked at her, eyes hollow. "But I never stopped to ask if I was doing the right thing." The room was quiet again. She didn't know whether to hate him or pity him. But one thing was clear, she couldn't trust him. "Not yet, maybe not ever. You used me," she said coldly. "You didn't see a person, you saw a project." He looked down at the floor. "You're right," he said softly. At first, she turned away from him. Her heart burned with betrayal. She had no home left, no people waiting for her. And now, even the man who saved her body had broken her trust. "I want to leave," she said. "You can't yet," he replied. "Your systems aren't stable." "I don't care," she said. "I'd rather crawl away than stay in this lab." He stood up, frustration growing in his voice. "You think I like this? You think I wanted any of this?" "You made the choice," she snapped. "I didn't." She walked past him, each step filled with pain and anger. "Where will you go?" He called after her. "I don't know," she said without turning. "But anywhere is better than being your test subject." She went to the hallway, but the door didn't open. Locked, sealed by his command, she hit it with her fists, her metal hands denting the panel. "Let me out!" she shouted. "I can't," he said quietly behind her. "If you leave now, your systems will overload. You could die." "I already did," she whispered, eyes full of tears. "The moment you put this machine inside me." Then she fell to the floor, her legs sparking. The implants in her spine glowing red, he rushed to her, catching her just before her head hit the ground. She was shaking, her body rejecting itself. "Hang on," he said, voice tight with panic. "I didn't come this far to lose you now." As darkness took her again, she whispered one last thing. "Don't save me again. Not unless you save who I really am." She woke with a sharp gasp, her body drenched in sweat, her metal limbs buzzing like angry wires. The room was darker now, lit only by red emergency lights. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her bones. The human was gone. No footsteps, no voice, just silence and the low hum of machines. She sat up slowly, pain flaring in her back. Her legs twitched but obeyed this time, moving with strange precision. She looked around the room. Everything was still, but something in the air felt off. She grabbed the cane and limped toward the hallway door. To her surprise, it opened without a code. The hallway outside was dim, smoke drifted from vents, and sparks jumped from exposed panels. She followed the corridor, using her enhanced vision to guide her path. Every step echoed, reminding her she was no longer silent, no longer natural. A low groan came from somewhere up ahead. She froze, listening. The sound came again, metal dragging against metal. She followed it slowly, carefully, her fingers ready to grab anything as a weapon. Then she saw it, a large steel door with black scorch marks around the edges. It looked like it had been sealed for a long time, but now it was cracked open. Her heart pounded in her chest. Curiosity mixed with dread as she stepped closer. She pushed the door open slowly, and a hiss of stale air rushed out. Inside was a dark chamber lined with glowing pods. Each pod held a body suspended in thick liquid. Alien children, warriors, old ones, all enhanced like her. Cybernetic limbs, glowing eyes, breathing tubes. Some were still alive, floating peacefully, others were broken, bodies twisted, cables ripped from their flesh. Her stomach turned at the sight. This wasn't healing, this was storage. Like broken tools waiting to be repaired or tossed away. She stepped deeper into the room, and then movement. One of the pods flickered, and a soft tapping came from inside. She hurried over, her hand resting on the glass. Inside was a young alien boy, no older than 10. His arms were gone, replaced with tiny chrome limbs. His eyes opened slowly, glowing faint blue. He looked at her and mouthed something. "Help me." Her breath caught in her throat. She touched the console next to the pod. It needed a clearance code, but her fingers moved quickly. Her mind remembered patterns from the human's console. Click, click, beep. The lock disengaged, and the pod hissed open. The boy gasped as the fluid drained, his weak form collapsing into her arms. She wrapped a blanket around him and held him close. "You're safe now," she whispered, even though she wasn't sure that was true. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the overhead speaker. "Unauthorized access to sub-level 3. Security override activated." She looked up, fear rising. Heavy doors began to slam shut around the lab. Ceiling sections off, she had to get out, now. She picked up the boy and ran, her legs stronger than before. The upgrades giving her speed, even if she still hated them. Down the corridor, she saw the human waiting, eyes wide with shock. He ran toward her, seeing the boy in her arms. "What have you done?" he shouted. "What you wouldn't," she snapped. "I freed someone." He grabbed the boy, checking his vitals. "He's not stable," he said. He wasn't ready to be released. "No one was ready for this place," she said. "But you did it anyway." He looked at her, pain in his voice. "There's more behind that door," she said. "A whole army of broken souls." "I couldn't save them all," he whispered. "But you kept them," she growled. "You hid them." Alarms continued to blare, and defense bots started rolling through the halls. She backed up, ready to fight. "Let me help," he said quickly. "I know the shutdown codes." She hesitated, then nodded. He rushed to the main panel and began typing fast. "I never meant for this to become what it did," he said. "I wanted to help people. But I lost control." The defense bots froze in place, lights blinking red, then green. The lockdown lifted slowly. She held the boy tightly, her mind racing. He had saved them this time, but trust was still broken. "There's more you're not telling me," she said. He looked at her, guilt in every line of his face. "Yes," he admitted, "and I'll show you everything." She didn't reply. She walked past him, still carrying the child. Her legs no longer stumbled, but her heart still did. She had found the truth, but now she needed justice, and she would not stop walking until she found it. She couldn't sleep that night, not after seeing what was behind the locked door, not after holding that child in her arms, not after learning that she was only one of many. She stared at the ceiling, her new legs twitching now and then. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the pods, rows and rows of silent prisoners waiting to be saved or forgotten forever. The human tried to speak to her, but she didn't want words anymore. She wanted freedom. She wanted to leave this metal tomb and take others with her. The next morning, she started planning. Every door she passed, every code she watched him enter. She memorized every hallway, every pattern in the guard drone patrols she studied. She moved quietly, acting weak when he looked. But her mind was sharper than ever. She waited until nightfall. When the lights dimmed and the human went to his quarters, he always locked her door. But he didn't know she had copied his fingerprint using a scanner chip in her arm. She pressed her metal finger to the panel. The door clicked and slid open with a hiss. Her heart pounded, but her legs moved with quiet confidence. She slipped into the hall wrapped in shadows. The lab was massive, far bigger than she ever realized. She passed silent chambers, sleeping machines, and other doors marked with numbers: Substorage B7, Test Bay 12, Failed Subjects. She reached the control room. A large glass panel overlooked the main testing floor. Below, several figures floated inside tubes. Motionless, she couldn't leave them like this. She tapped the console. It needed 2 keys to unlock. The second one was in his room. Her fingers tightened. She didn't want to go back there, but she had no choice. She returned to the sleeping quarters. The door was locked, but she had learned enough to break it quietly. Inside, he lay asleep, a datapad still glowing beside his hand. She stepped slowly, her feet making no sound. She reached for the metal case on the desk. Her fingers brushed it, then suddenly, going somewhere. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. She froze. He sat up, his eyes tired but alert. "You were going to run," he said. Again. She didn't lie. I'm not running, she whispered. I'm breaking them out. You'll kill them, he said, standing slowly. The systems aren't stable yet. Then make them stable, she said. Or I will. He stepped closer, hands raised. I told you I'd show you everything. But not like this, I already saw enough, she growled. I'm not your project. And neither are they. Suddenly, a red light flashed on the wall. Unauthorized access detected. Security drones activating. She grabbed the case and ran. The hallway lit up with warning lights. Mechanical whirring followed behind her. She didn't stop, her legs moving faster than ever. 2 drones dropped from the ceiling ahead. They spun in midair, scanning for threats. She leapt, slamming into one with a knee strike. It sparked and crashed into the wall. The second fired a pulse shot. She rolled aside. Grabbing a metal pipe from the floor with one swing, she cracked its sensor and sent it tumbling. Alarm screamed louder now. The human chased behind her. Not with anger, but fear. Stop. You'll set off the failsafe, he shouted. She didn't listen. She reached the control room again. Slammed the case into the second lock. The main screen blinked. Unsealing. Chambers below hissed open, steam rising from the pods. One by one, figures began to move. Children, teenagers, elders, half machine. Half flesh, they looked confused, frightened, but awake. She spoke into the room's speaker. You're free, she said, her voice breaking. Follow my voice, we're getting out. The human finally arrived. He stared at the waking figures, his face full of pain. I wanted to fix the world, he whispered. But I broke too many lives, she turned to him. You can still fix it, she said, but not as their captor. Help me guide them out. He looked at her, then nodded. Together they opened emergency exits. Turned off the auto-defense systems. Lights flickered as backup power failed. But the path was clear one by one. The survivors followed her. They limped, stumbled, crawled, but they followed. She led them through tunnels and past broken doors, toward something none of them had felt in a long time, hope. As they reached the surface hatch, she looked back once more. That cold metal lab that stole everything from her. She was leaving it behind, but she wasn't walking away weak. She was walking out as a leader, and behind her, the broken were learning to stand one step at a time. They reached the outer platform just before sunrise. The world outside was quiet, cold, and covered in dust. Cracked ground stretched to the horizon, and broken towers poked out like bones from the earth. She stood at the front, the others behind her, half limping, half dragging their bodies. The wind hit her face, and for the first time in days she smelled real air. She turned to him. The human who followed silently, his clothes were torn, his face marked with cuts and soot. But his eyes were different now. No longer sharp and focused like a scientist. Now they were tired, ashamed, human. We need shelter, she said calmly. They're weak. There's an abandoned station nearby, he replied. 2 kilometers north. She nodded. And they began walking. She led the group. And he walked beside her, silent most of the way. The boy she had rescued clung to her arm, still shaking. Others followed, afraid but trusting her more than anyone else. When they reached the station, she checked every room. It was old, dusty, but safe. Cots lined the back wall, and a power unit hummed quietly in the corner. The group collapsed one by one, resting, breathing, healing slowly. She stood by the doorway, watching them sleep, and finally, she looked at him, the human. Sit, she said firmly. He obeyed, lowering himself onto a crate nearby. You knew they were suffering, she said. He nodded slowly. I tried to forget, he whispered. I told myself it was all for progress. She studied him carefully. No more lies, she said, not now. What really happened to your daughter? His eyes filled with pain. She was born with a rare nervous system failure, he said softly. She couldn't move her legs after age 6, and by the time she was 10, she could barely breathe. I spent everything trying to save her. He looked down at his hands. I developed neural repair units, spinal grafts, artificial lungs, but nothing worked. She died screaming, asking why I didn't fix her. Silence filled the room again. I built the lab after that, he continued. I wanted to make sure no one else had to suffer like she did. But the funding stopped, so I kept going. Underground. I thought I was helping, he said. Even when they screamed, even when they begged. She clenched her jaw, holding back the storm in her chest. You stopped seeing people, she said coldly. You saw parts, upgrades. Tess, he nodded, ashamed. I know, he whispered. I see it now. She stepped closer. I'm not forgiving you, she said. Not for what you did. But I need to know one thing. If you could go back, would you still do it? He looked at her, truly looked, not at her metal legs or glowing eyes, but at the woman inside, the survivor, the leader. The voice of the broken. No, he said, tears in his voice. I would have saved you without touching your body. I would have asked first, I would have listened. That was the first honest thing he had said. And she saw it in his eyes. It wasn't just guilt. It was something deeper. Regret. Real regret. She turned back to the others. The boy stirred, coughing softly in his sleep. We have to move soon, she said. This place won't stay safe. There's a refugee ship that passes this region every 5 days, he replied. If we reach the tower beacon, we can call them. She hesitated. Would they even take us? She asked. Hybrids, failed projects, broken bodies. They'll see you, he said. Not the machines. She gave a tired laugh. You think too highly of the galaxy. Maybe, he replied. Or maybe they just need someone brave enough to ask. She looked at him again, this time with less hate in her eyes. Still no forgiveness, but less fire. I'll lead them, she said. But if anyone tries to cage us again, I'll burn the whole place down. He nodded slowly. That's fair, he said quietly. You've earned that right. Outside, the wind blew stronger. She walked out onto the dirt with the cane in her hand, not because she needed it, but because it reminded her of pain, of fight, of truth. The others followed, silent. Together, they walked toward the beacon tower. A new future, uncertain but theirs, and with each step, the truth behind her and the wind ahead. She no longer feared her legs. They weren't her prison anymore, they were her power. The morning sky turned gray as clouds rolled in. The wind grew colder, faster, harsher, but they kept walking, one step at a time, metal and flesh moving together. The tower beacon stood tall on the horizon, old, cracked, and half covered in sand. She could see it now. The place that could send a signal to the stars. Behind her, the group followed. Some limping, some carried, some silent with tired eyes, but all of them alive, all of them hoping. The human walked beside her, no longer leading. Just following the woman he once called Subject 7X. Now she was the one giving orders, the one holding them all together. But deep down, she knew it wouldn't be easy. I can power the beacon from the tower's core, he said. But someone needs to climb to the top and align the dish. She nodded. I'll do it, she said without hesitation. You'll need help, he added. She looked at the boy she saved, now stronger, walking on his own metal legs. He'll come with me, she said. The boy smiled and nodded. He didn't say much, but she trusted him. They reached the tower by midday. It was surrounded by broken machines and sun-bleached bones, a reminder of those who came before and never made it. But she would not let history repeat itself. They entered the tower. The core chamber was still intact. The human rushed to the control panel. Fingers moving fast, lights flickered, sparks flew. But the power slowly returned. Meanwhile, she and the boy began climbing. Step by step, floor by floor, rusty ladders, loose cables, narrow ledges, each one a test. Her metal legs gripped better than any boot could. But the wind howled louder the higher they went. Halfway up, they heard the first warning. A low boom in the distance. The boy stopped climbing. Eyes wide. What was that? He asked. She looked out a shattered window and froze. 3 dark ships were coming over the hills. Fast, low, dangerous scouts, she whispered. They tracked the lab's signal. Who are they? The boy asked. The ones who wanted us locked away, she said. The ones who funded the project before it went dark. She climbed faster. There was no time left if the signal wasn't sent. The rescue ship would never come, and those ships, they weren't here to negotiate. Below, the human saw the same threat. He turned to the others. We hold them here, he said. Give her time. He passed out scavenged weapons. Built quick traps, rewired drones. He was a scientist, yes, but today, he would fight above. She and the boy reached the top. The dish was rusted, frozen in place. She grabbed a pipe and began slamming the gears. The boy used his small tools to rewire the panel. Wind pushed them hard, but they held on down below. The enemy ships landed. Black-armored soldiers stepped out, weapons raised. Return the property, they shouted. She's not your property, the human yelled back. And the battle began. Gunfire, sparks, smoke, screams. The broken fought back. Not trained, not armed well, but brave. Every second they held the line gave her another second up top. Signal's ready, the boy shouted. Then send it, she said. He hit the switch, a green light blinked. A wave of energy burst into the sky. A beacon flare shot upward like a star being born. The enemy saw it, they screamed, tried to shut it down. But the signal was already out. The galaxy had heard them, she climbed down fast. Her eyes locked on the battlefield. Her people fighting, bleeding, surviving. She joined them, metal legs crushing enemy weapons, hands grabbing the fallen and pulling them to safety. The human was wounded, bleeding from his shoulder. But he still held the line. When he saw her return, he gave a weak smile. You made it, he said. We all will, she answered, the enemy, realizing they were outnumbered and outmatched, began retreating. The flare in the sky had called others. In the distance, bright lights appeared, rescue ships faster and stronger. Approaching from orbit, they had done it. Not just escaped, but fought for the others. Saved them, gave them voices again. She looked around at the survivors. Every one of them different, broken, changed, but alive. Because she didn't stop walking. Because she didn't let her pain become a cage. The human sat down tired. She sat beside him, the boy leaning on her other side. Still think you saved me? She asked. He shook his head slowly. No, he whispered. You saved all of us. The ships landed with soft roars. Doors opened, light spilled across the battlefield. She stood tall, her metal legs no longer a burden. They were a symbol of survival, of fire, of freedom. And when the rescuers asked who she was, she didn't say Subject 7X, she didn't say victim, she said,